Do you find the question, how many rooms do you have in your house, intrusive?
You know what? I don't, but I've heard from Canadians who do. And I've heard from Canadians who are concerned about other questions about whether someone in the household has a mental or physical incapacity. They're concerned about questions about the characteristics of their drive or their commute to work. That's not me, and certainly if I get a long-form survey, I'm going to fill it out, Rosie. But at the same time, I have to be respectful of those Canadians who are concerned about the very private nature of those questions and give them a chance to opt out if they so choose.
But that seems like a very mixed message to me, Minister. You say that you respect people's privacy and their issues, but at the same time, you say that you would fill it out, and you say that the government will be heavily advertising to make sure that people do fill it out. Does that not show Canadians who have concerns how vital that information is to some of the key policy decisions that your government needs to make?
I think it shows that we're listening to Canadians and we're trying to balance off the concerns of a group of Canadians. I'm not saying it's all Canadians, Rosie, but there are a group of Canadians who are very concerned about those questions. And they have a right, we believe, to opt out of the survey without facing jail time or fines. And so that's why we've worked with StatsCan over a number of months to come up with a survey that would still ask those questions, have a much higher sample size, have a much higher advocacy and advertising campaign so that we can get usable data for the purposes for which the survey was conducted, but at the same time respect the privacy rights of Canadians who are concerned about this issue.
Listen, a lot of people interpret this governmental decision not as a policy decision at all, but as a political decision, as the Conservative Party trying to appease part of your base, whether it be the Libertarians inside the party or others who have concerns about privacy, that this isn't about the good of Canadians, that this is about the good of your party. How do you respond to that?
Well, I would say that what we're trying to do is strike a reasonable balance, that we, in fact, are being the reasonable compromisers on this issue, because there are two very different points of view on this, so we certainly recognize that. But what we're trying to do is have a compromise where we can listen to those Canadians who have great concerns about the intrusive nature of those questions, their own privacy, and do not want to face jail time or threats of fines if they don't fill out the form. So listen to them, but at the same time, listen to those Canadians who have use for this data, whether it's a private business or an institution of government or an NGO. Listen to them as well and come up with a way to get usable data for them for the purposes for which the survey was designed in the first place.
How many people have been thrown in jail for not answering the long-form census?
But here's the thing. They are threatened
but what's
with jail.
the answer?
The answer is zero, but how many are threatened with jail? There's an agent of the Government of Canada at your door saying you haven't filled out the census, and if you don't, there might be jail time, there might be fines. That is a very coercive conversation that an agent of the Government of Canada is having with a citizen of Canada, and we are with those who are concerned about that kind of dialogue, and we say respect the privacy rights, but have a system for those who wish to fill out the census, to fill out the long-form survey, as well as the mandatory census.
So why not just get rid of the threat of jail time and the threat of fines? If that's what the issue is, if the issue for your government is about coercion, why not get rid of that part of it?
Well, because then you're left with our position. That's our position. No jail time, no fines, and so therefore you have an opportunity to opt out. That's exactly our position, Rosie.
Okay, so have you always agreed with this position? Because there have been reports that you, in fact, told the Prime Minister's office you weren't quite on side.
There is not a micron of difference of opinion between myself and the Prime Minister. We're both concerned about Canadians who have come to us and come to our caucus, come to MPs, who are concerned about the intrusive nature of these questions, have privacy concerns, and are concerned about the coercive nature of the threats of jail time, the threats of fines, and so we stand with them. But we found, I think, a reasonable way to also acknowledge that there are people that want this data. They might be businesses, they might be non-governmental organizations, they might be other governments, and so find a way to collect that data in a reasonable and usable way without throwing or threatening to throw people in jail or fining them.
What do you plan to do if you find out that the data is useless, that it's not worth much because hardly anyone has answered this long-form census. Mark Carney today really hesitated about answering this question because he also has concerns. Do you have a backup plan for once the census is complete and you find out that the data is not worth what you had previously had?
Well, actually, this is the point, Rosie, that we've been working with StatsCan on the implementation of a Government of Canada decision for months now, and we'll be working with them for months ahead before the May 2011 census. So part of that plan is the very much increased sample size. Part of that plan is the increase of the advertising and advocacy campaign. So we are convinced, I'm convinced, we're convinced that by doing those extra things, that we can have usable data based on the options that were presented by StatsCan to the Government of Canada and to myself as the Minister. So yes, I'm quite confident of that.
Okay, but how do you plan to convince everyone that doesn't agree with you? Because it's a long list at this stage, and I agree that some people are on side with you, but there are people like the Canada West Foundation, not exactly a left-wing organization, that doesn't think this is the right move. There are all sorts of businesses and charities, and John Drummond also, not a left-wing guy, who says this is not the right thing to do. How do you plan to convince them that this is the reasonable decision? Because so far they're not on side with you.
Well, certainly there's a healthy debate going on in Canada, and there are people, as you know, on the other side of that debate, institutions and think tanks and individuals and commentators who say that the government is on the right side of the issue. So we're having a healthy debate in this country, and that's all fine. What I think we've done is tried to strike that balance. That we think our position is the balanced position. Concern ourselves and recognize that Canadians shouldn't be forced to fill out very personal questions on pain of fines and or jail time, while at the same time implement the decision to go forward with the survey in a way that can give usable data for the purposes that were designed in the survey.
Just quickly, Minister, are you surprised that it has blown up this way, this debate has taken over this way?
Well, I know that this is a topic that every 5 years MPs get letters, get emails from constituents concerned about the kinds of questions an arm or a branch of the Government of Canada is asking them to fill out and threatening jail time or fines. So believe me, if we weren't having this debate now, we'd be having it sort of 8 months from now. And so I think that we've done the right thing. We've listened to Canadians who are concerned about this and found the appropriate balance.
Okay, Minister, thanks very much for your time from London today, and we'll see you back in this country soon, I hope.